Welcome to a My Vend Track tutorial. In this tutorial we are going to go over the individual machines page. I have added a machine, Best Buy, and I am now sitting on the Best Buy machine page. At first glance it might look like a lot is going on, and so through this tutorial I'm going to go over all the things the My Vend Track system can do to help you track this machine. Let's work our way from the bottom up. At the very bottom you see we have location info. This location info is showing up down here because I selected Mall of America when I set up the machine. If I edit the machine info and decide this is not at Mall of America and update it, we'll notice there is no more location section down here. That is because the machine is not located. But since this machine actually is at the Mall of America, let's switch that back to Mall of America and hit update. And there, our location info section is back down there at the bottom of the page. Next up is the machine info section. Here's where you can actually edit info that's directly relating to the machine. If we hit edit, we get the pop-up form. So we can edit the name, when we placed it, our location, what type of machine it is, products in it, make, model, serial number, and a key. Down below here we have some checkboxes. Track inventory. If this box is checked, when you add a product to the machine, the system will automatically try to pull from your inventory on hand and put it into the machine. If you leave this unchecked, it will not pull from your inventory. The next checkbox is the Use Cash Meter. If you use a cash meter for this machine, you would check this box. If you use a click meter, you would also check the Use Click Meter box. And then you would enter the click value. If everything is good, go ahead and update it. Moving on up, we have scheduled tasks. As you can see, I have no scheduled tasks for this machine currently. What is a scheduled task? A scheduled task is you telling the My Vend Track system to do something at a certain time. To see more what I mean, let's go ahead and add a scheduled task. This is the scheduled task form. The first thing in the form is the task itself. What task do you want to perform? We have a commission task, we have a tax, or we have a service. Let's start out with the first one, commission. The next selection we have is the type of commission we want to be adding. We can select either percentage or a fixed amount. Let's say we have a commission of $50 for this machine every month. So that would be a fixed amount. We select fixed amount and we enter $50. Now we have to decide when we want this to repeat. Like I said, we are going to select monthly for this one. And we want to repeat this every single month. We select repeat 1 month. Next we will select the day of the month we want to repeat on. Let's say we pay this out on the 1st of every month, starting April. Next we can decide when we want this to end. We can either select never, we can select after so many occurrences, or we can select ends on a certain day. Let's say we know we are going to be moving this machine in June, and that is the last day of this commission. Next up is the event color. The event color is what will show up on your calendar. Every scheduled task you add will show up on your calendar. Let's make this a red task. And the last thing in the form is this checkbox at the bottom. Apply commission to amounts collected. If we select this, every time we enter an amount collected, a commission will be taken out of it. Let's check it. Hit add. Our scheduled task, a commission of $50, has been successfully added to our Best Buy machine. So basically what this means is that every month on the 1st, the system will automatically create an expense under the commissions category for $50. Let's go ahead and add one more scheduled task. For this task, we are going to add a service. This will show up on our calendar so we know what day we need to service Best Buy on. We are going to service this every week. The day we are going to service this on will be Friday. Next, we select the start on date. Let's say this started on April 1st. Let's tell the system to never end this task. Last, we will select the color for this task, which will show up on our calendar. Let's make this bright. If everything looks good, we can hit the Add button. Our scheduled service has been added under the Scheduled Tasks section. Before we move up to the Machine Setup section, let's check the scheduled tasks and how they appear on the calendar. If we go over to the Calendars tab, our calendar will be displayed. The first task we added was a commission task. And here it is, set to go off on the 1st of every month, April 1st and May 1st. The second task we added was a service reminder task, every Friday for Best Buy. And here we see the bright service task that I added. Scheduled task service, set to go off every Friday. The machine setup section is an overview of what selections are in your machine. Since I just set up this machine, we have no selections in it. Let's add some selections. Begin by clicking on the plus icon in the machine setup section. The first selection we are going to add is Mountain Dew. We give our selection a name, A1, and then select Mountain Dew. Next we will enter a price for a Mountain Dew. Let's set our price to 75 cents per can. And the max capacity is how many can the machine hold. Our machine can hold 24 total. Once you have filled out the selection form, click the Add button. The table will refresh and your selection is now in your machine. Let's add a few more selections. For this tutorial, I will have 3 selections in this machine: Mountain Dew, Coke, and Skittles. If for any reason you don't want a selection in your machine, or you entered it incorrectly, you can just hit Delete Selection. So in our case, if this was going to be a strictly soda machine, we do not need Skittles. So we will delete it. Now we are left with Mountain Dew and Coke. To edit either of these selections, simply click on the selection's name. An Edit Selections pop-up will be displayed to you, listing out each selection in the machine. From this pop-out, we can edit everything. Let's say we actually want each soda to be sold for $1. We simply update it here, and our selections have been updated to vend for $1. Once you are done setting up your machine, the machine is all ready to be serviced. All of the servicing will happen on the machine timeline over here. Our current machine timeline is blank since we have not serviced this machine yet. All of the actions you can perform on the machine are these icons right up here. We can add cash collected, add mileage, add an expense, add click meter, cash meter, and then finally we can add products to the machine. Let's begin with the Add Cash Collected. The Cash Collected form is where you will come whenever you take money out of your machine. Let's say today we went to the machine and we took out $100. We begin by selecting the date we serviced the machine. Next, we enter the amount we took out of the machine. Then we have the option to apply this amount to the whole machine or a single selection in the machine. Today we took it out of the whole machine. Another thing to note is if you don't know the exact amount, let's say you are withdrawing coins, you would select Enter Coin Counts. Here is where you can enter quarters, nickels, dimes, pennies, $1 bills, and $5 bills, and the amounts will automatically be generated for you. So I can enter my coins here, and you see the amount is automatically calculated for me. Once you are happy with the way this form is filled out, go ahead and click the Add button. Now our machine is beginning to come to life. The stats section up here, we can see a graph has been generated for us based on what we have input. And our machine timeline now has something on it. We can look here and see that on the 21st, we took out $24.75. We also see that a commission of $50 has been applied. Why is this happening, you ask? Well, if we look over here on our scheduled tasks, we have a commission of $50. And if you remember, we checked this box, Apply Commission to Amounts Collected, which is pretty silly in this case. So we are going to uncheck that box and hit Update. Now, every time we add cash collected, a commission will not be applied. So if we don't want this commission here on our machine timeline, we can simply delete it. Click the red X and hit Delete. And there we have it. Our commission is no more. Let's go ahead and add one more cash collected, and then we will move on. Next to the Add Cash Collected icon is the Add Mileage icon. The Add Mileage icon is where you will come if you want to add mileage to the machine. So if I traveled 50 miles today to get to my machine and 50 miles back, I have traveled 100 miles and I need to add that mileage to this machine. We begin by selecting the date we traveled on, the 21st. Next, we have the option to enter the miles, or we can enter the odometer. By entering the odometer, you can see the miles are automatically calculated. Then, if you have any notes to enter for the mileage traveled, you can enter them here. Next up, we have a few checkboxes. We can see that we are already tying this mileage to the machine because we are on the Best Buy machine. If for whatever reason you would like to select a different machine here, you can do so. Also, if you have a route that this machine is on, you can check the tie mileage to route, and then you could select the route that this machine is on. But we are going to leave it on tie mileage to machine. Once the form is completed, we will click the Add button. If we look back at the machine timeline, we can see our 100 miles has been successfully added on the 21st. If this was incorrect, we could delete it by clicking the red X, or we can edit it by clicking the pencil icon. But the miles look good. So let's move on to the expenses. The Add Expense is where you will come if there's any expense you have to add to this machine. Let's add an expense. We begin, like always, with selecting a date. Let's say on the 9th we're going to add an expense. Then you will decide the amount. Let's put in $40. Next is the category. What is this expense for? We will say we want to get gas. Then we can add a note for this expense. Last but not least, we are going to tie this expense to the machine. Just like the mileage, the tie expense to machine is already checked for us and our machine is selected. Once the form looks good, click Add. Looking at our machine timeline again, we can see that our $40 gas expense has been added. Just like anything else, we can edit or we can delete this record right here on the machine timeline. Let's continue on. Next up we have the click meter. This little click meter icon here will only show up if you come down here to the machine info and you have the use click meter checked. If you uncheck this, this icon will go away. For this tutorial, we have it enabled. To record the click meter, click on the icon. The click meter form will tell us our current value, the previous count, and then we have the input for our current count. Like always, we begin by entering a date. Now we can enter the current count. Let's put 6 and hit add. Back on the machine timeline, on April 2nd, we can see our click meter was at 6. Next we have our cash meter. Again, this cash meter icon right here will only appear if you have the use cash meter checked in the machine info. If you uncheck this, the cash meter icon will disappear. Let's go ahead and update our cash meter. We click on the icon and we get the cash meter form. We begin by selecting a date. Let's say the April 13th. Our previous cash meter count is at none. Since this is a new machine, that makes sense. This will be our first cash meter entry. And we will put the count at $50. Hit add. We can see here, on the 13th, our cash meter was successfully updated to $50. Let's update the cash meter one more time. So let's say today we actually went to the machine, the 21st. This is what I was talking about. The previous count no longer says none. It tells us that the last time the cash meter was updated was on the 13th at $50. Today, the cash meter is now at $120. And there we have it, our little cash meter icon at $120. That's the cash meter. Finally, we can move on to the adding of products, which is the last little box icon you see here in the machine timeline section. So let's click the add product icon and we will get the form. As always, begin by selecting the date you added the products. Next we can see our products listed out here: Mountain Dew and Coke. There are two input boxes on the right of each product: the current count and how many we are adding to the machine. Since we are just installing this machine, our current count in this case is 0. There is none in the machine. Now we will enter how many we are adding to the machine. We brought a whole case and are adding 24 Mountain Dew. We will enter the same thing for Coke. Another thing to note in this form is the Add Notes sections for each product. If you click on the link, it will toggle the Notes section. And this is where you can add notes of anything related to each product. Let's say we dropped one Mountain Dew and it exploded. That means we only have 23 to add. And just for the fun of it, let's say something about Coke as well. And that's really all there is to the Add Products form. Once you've entered all your products, and now our machine timeline just got really big. Let's take a look at what happened. First of all, we added 23 Mountain Dew. And our note right underneath it appeared, telling us that we dropped one Mountain Dew and it exploded. And then you will notice all of these expenses. Every time you add a product to a machine, it will automatically create an expense for you in the system. That way you do not have to create an expense individually for each product you add. This is why you see all the expenses listed out here, one for each Mountain Dew added. And the same thing for the Coke. 24 Cokes were added, our note appeared here, Coke is great, and we have an expense created for each Coke. One more thing on the machine timeline is the date range here. This is helpful if you would like to see a month, a couple months, or even a year of your machine. Let's say we only want to see the first week in April, from April 1st to April 8th. You simply select the date range and hit go. Your machine timeline will be updated with only entries between those two dates. One other thing to be aware of is the machine setup count column. As you can see, we have entered 23 Mountain Dews and 24 Cokes. The count column displays currently how many are in the machine and how many the machine can hold. So this tells us 23 are in the machine, but the machine can hold 24. So we are -1. The Coke is full at 24 out of 24. Now let's move to the very top of the page, the stats section. This is where you can get a graphical view of what's going on with your machine. The default page will always show up with net sales versus gross sales for the current month. If we would like to change the graph to a different date range or a different type of graph, we will come over here and click the Stats Settings icon. Stats Settings provides us with a few simple settings we can select from in order to display the graph a little bit differently. We have a date range where we can decide what date range we want to see stats between. Next we can select the graph type and how the graph should be displayed: column graph, bar graph, or line graph. Simply hit go to update the graph. The graph will be updated and we can see our stats. The final two things we will be looking at are the two actions in the top right of the page. The first one is a service sheet. By clicking on it, we will open a new window with a printer-friendly version of our machine. We can now print this page and bring it along with us when we go to service the machine. We can fill it out when we're at the machine, bring it home, and enter the data back into the My Vend Track system. The last thing we will go over is the commissions invoice. If we click on the commissions invoice, we will open a new window with a nice printer-friendly commission invoice. On the commissions invoice is 3 sections. The first section is the location info, general info about the location. Next section is the machine info, just some basic info on the machine, such as name, machine type, make, model, etc. The service history section is probably the most important section, and it's what whoever is at the location is going to want to see. It tells you dates and amounts collected on those dates, and then commission, if any. And that's going to wrap up our machine tutorial. Let's quickly recap what we have learned. Let's start from top to bottom. We learned about the service sheet and how you can print off a printer-friendly sheet to bring with you when you go to service the machine. Next we have the commissions invoice, where you can print off an invoice and give it to whoever is at the location. Moving on down, we have our Stats tab. This is where you can get a graphical representation of the data for your machine between any dates you would like. Scrolling on down, we have the machine timeline, probably the most important section of your machine. It's where you can see all the data in a list view by date of what's going on. We learned how to add cash collected, mileage, expenses, click meter, cash meter, and of course how to add products to the machine. Over here to the right is the machine setup. We learned how to add selections, edit selections, and remove selections from our machine. Then we learned how to schedule tasks for our machine, how we can put these on the calendar so we know when to service the machine, when commissions are coming to the machine, and a various assortment of other events that can also be scheduled. And the bottom two sections here, the machine info and the location info. The machine info where you have your basic machine setup, and the location info which gives you all the info on the location where the machine is located at. That's going to do it for this tutorial. Thanks for sticking it out with me, and I hope that you've learned something from this tutorial. Thanks for watching.